welcome. I can't go over there, can I? Oh, Pamela, I can't stand still. That's not engaging. Okay. Hey, everybody. Sarah's making me stand still so y'all can see me out there. Hey, everybody here. Sorry, I have to stand still. Welcome. Good morning. Welcome to Richmond. For those of you that came from out of town, welcome to Virginia Commonwealth University. We're so glad to see you guys. How many of you came to us from outside of Richmond today? Is it? Okay, good. Awesome. We'll get around to introductions and find out where you all are from. Before we do that, let me just tell you that I believe that you have come to visit the best forensic science program in the country. I am biased. I've been here since the beginning, and so I am a little bit biased in that regard, but I do believe that we are one of, if not the very best program in the country, especially for our master's program. Our master's program was conceived in 1982. We've been around for a very long time. We have a very strong partnership with the State Crime Lab that we interact with frequently on a variety of levels. And we'll be hearing about all of that more from Dr. Williams. We have 11 full-time faculty here in the department, which also makes us, I believe, by faculty as well as by the number of students total, the biggest forensic science program in the country. And as you all know, we have our own department, which comes with a lot of perks that students may or may not realize. But having our own department means we have direct access to our dean. We have a direct line of funding. We have direct control of our recruitment efforts, our budget, and other things. So that means we're able to acquire the technology and the instrumentation that we want, that we feel is necessary to stay relevant and modern. But it also means that we're able to send our students to present with us at different conferences. We send our faculty to conferences, our staff, and we also have a number of engaging opportunities. Almost, it feels like weekly. Joe has stepped it up, but we are very, very involved with our students, especially our graduate students. Most of us are on a first name basis with our graduate students. And as I mentioned, we're seeing them in the hallways weekly, if not daily, oftentimes for exciting events and opportunities that we have right here in the department, which often includes food, which is a bonus. So I am Tracy Dawson-Cruz, and I am currently, I haven't done that in a long time. I'm gonna make a phone call. I've been married now a year and 8 months, and I forgot that my name changed. I am Tracy Dawson Green, and don't tell my new husband. Today's his birthday. I am Tracy Dawson Green, and I'm currently have the pleasure of serving as the chair of the department. I'm also a professor in the department. My background is in forensic DNA. And part of my job as chair is to make sure we recruit and retain the best and the brightest. And I know that we have that in this room and on our Zoom today. So we're very excited to get to know you and to welcome you to our department. We're going to do some introductions next, which is always fun. Sarah's very smart about she's very realistic about the timing that she gave us. So that's good because we always tend to go over. So I'll start. So as I mentioned, I'm Tracy Dawson Green. My background is forensic DNA. I did work in a private forensic DNA testing facility and became technical leader before I came back into academics. And that's another thing I want to mention about our amazing faculty in this department is that all of us have relevant experience in our professional fields before we came back to academics. So we're not just a bunch of boring old professors. We have casework experience, we have great stories, and we try to integrate that into our research and our teaching that you guys be a part of here. So that's a little bit about me. I want to start now.
Okay, let's see if that's better. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so sorry about that. Well, that was just kind of a preamble about my involvement in the program. So I started as a drug chemist, and now I'm the director of the department. The Department of Forensic Science in Virginia is the sole source of forensic services for many of the disciplines for the state of Virginia. And this is different than many other states across the country where there are lots of local and city labs. So in Virginia, there's just the state lab, and we have 4 locations. One is here in Richmond, where VCU is located, and then one in Manassas, one in Roanoke, and one in Norfolk, so that hopefully our scientists only have to travel, but so far, to support their analyses in court. So we really enjoy the opportunity to work with students while they're in the master's program. We do still teach, I think, 3 classes on our site where we're using instruments that are used in casework for the classwork, and also have certain interns that are able to do projects in the laboratory. So one of the good things about being so attached to a forensic laboratory system is you do have the insight of real problems that are occurring in the laboratory at this time, and how research can be used to make those better and facilitate solutions, and maybe be a part of working on some of those solutions. And so basically, I guess the one other thing that I'm sorry, I got discombobulated with having to switch my audio. The one other thing that I did want to say was what disciplines we do provide, since those kind of go along with the different tracks that are offered at VCU. So we have a toxicology program area, and that actually contains both our breath alcohol program in the state, as well as formal toxicology, where they do the testing for all of the post-mortem samples from the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and also analyze samples from drivers for driving under the influence type charges. Also, they do testing on things like drug-facilitated sexual assault. Next, we have our chemistry program area, and that includes seized drug analysis, which is one of the largest sections. It's about the same size as DNA, and also trace evidence. Trace evidence includes, as you probably know, pretty much every chemistry type testing that doesn't involve drugs. So glass, fire debris, paint, all of that kind of good stuff. Next, we have our physical evidence program area, and that includes firearms and tool marks, latent prints, and impressions. For impressions, we do both tire track and footwear. And lastly, digital and multimedia evidence. And last, we have our DNA program area. We do generally 3 types of DNA testing at our laboratory. We do what I call regular DNA, which is nuclear DNA or autosomal DNA. We perform YSTR testing, and we perform mitochondrial DNA testing, generally in limited cases for unidentified remains or something like that. And so that's kind of what we do for crime scene. We do not go out to any crime scenes at our laboratory, but we do provide training to law enforcement in the science of crime scene, and make sure that officers understand what our capabilities are and how they collect and package evidence can affect the testing downstream. So anyway, hopefully all of that sounds like it integrates with the program, and we're happy to be involved with them as their feedback partner, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Thanks, Linda. Any questions for Linda? Yeah.
How much involvement do the students have in actual direct hands-on experience at the lab?
Did you hear that, Linda?
So how much hands-on experience do they get at the laboratory?
Yes, please.
So it kind of depends on the classes that are being taught on site, and whether or not you are performing an internship within the laboratory. So the classes that are currently still taught on site are drug analysis, as well as, I think, trace evidence. There's a couple trace evidence classes, and latent prints, I think, is still, and patterns is still taught at the laboratory. So those are the ones that are generally where you're certainly going to have more hands-on experience in the laboratory setting. And if, you know, we've had interns in several different areas over the years. It just depends on the interest you have in a project and the availability of our scientists to be able to take an intern on. And we have, for those of you who may not be in the Richmond area, but maybe in some other part of the state, we have done internships in other parts of the state as well, particularly the Eastern Lab in the biology area.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll talk in just a minute, but the students choose where they want to do their research project, and if they choose to do it at a crime lab, they'll be in a crime lab. And if they choose to do it at VCU, of course, they'll be at VCU. And so the choice, there's a lot of different factors as to why they would make the choice they would. So, yeah. Other questions for Linda? Okay. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you. All right.
Great day.
Yeah, you too. Have a great program.
Okay. All right. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, just welcome again. We'll be ready for you guys when you come around to the department at
12:30.
12:30, and we're all just right down the hall. So if you need any help while you're visiting or anytime, just let us know and reach out to us. But I'm sure you'll get all your questions answered.
I'm about to sling every bit of information at them.
Yeah, you're ready.
Get ready.
Buckle up. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so just want to make sure that I'm sharing my screen because I often forget to do that. Okay. Okay. All right, so so now we're going to get into kind of probably the nitty-gritty of why you're here is to learn about the program and learn about the curriculum and the options that you have and the benefits that make this program, you know, maybe why you want to come here and how to apply and all of that. So I like a collaborative discussion over talking at you. So if you have any questions as you go along, whether we're here in this room or whether we're over Zoom, for Zoom, I think I'd prefer if you threw it in the chat. I'll keep an eye on the chat. And for those of you in the room, definitely just stick your hands up. So ask questions if you have any as we go along, and we'll address them as we go. If you want to wait until the end, of course, that's fine as well. It's up to you. So when we're talking about the program, of course, forensic science, I'm sure you all kind of know what forensic science is. But specifically when we talk about forensic science and what we offer here in this program, we're really focusing in on criminalistics. So we're not really talking about the kind of the peripheral areas of forensic science like anthropology, forensic medicine, forensic dentistry, forensic engineering, odontology. We're really talking about the things that are in the crime lab. And that's what we're working to prepare you for the most part. Now, we have occasionally had students go on to become medical examiners from the master's degree, although usually they go on from the bachelor's degree for that. But for the most part, our graduates of the master's program either go on to become forensic scientists in crime laboratories, or about 2 to 3 out of every graduating class go on to a PhD program. And that's our mission, and those are our goals, and that's what we build our program for, is to build forensic scientists that are working within a crime laboratory. And specifically, the concentrations that we've built and that we've designed this program around are designed for those criminalistic specialties. So, So we have the chemistry concentrations, so drugs toxicology, which prepare you for careers in those specialties. So drug analysis, which would be the physical drugs themselves, versus toxicology, which would be analysis of the drugs, poisons, and drug and poison metabolites in body fluids after somebody has ingested them. So that's drugs and toxicology. And then chemistry trace evidence, which is kind of a catch-all. It's explosives, arson, paint analysis, polymers, it's hairs and fibers, it's anthrax, it's everything that doesn't have a category, right? It's a lot, it's lamp filaments, like it's a lot of different things, but that's what trace evidence is. But it's on the chemistry side, right? And then forensic biology is very specifically focused on DNA analysis. So serology, which is body fluid identification, and DNA analysis. Now within DNA analysis, most of your forensic examiners are going on to become nuclear DNA analysts. So the current paradigm is autosomal STR analysis, but we do, using with our 3-course sequence, we do prepare you for the future, which is really next generation sequencing and SNP analysis. But we also go into both hands-on and theoretical training for mitochondrial and YSTR analysis as well. So we're preparing you for pretty much anything in the DNA realm in forensic biology. And then physical evidence analysis, that concentration is more of a catch-all, and it's very flexible, and we'll talk about that in a second. It's designed to allow you to specialize in a couple of different fields. So that's where our people who think they want to go on to a PhD in anthropology would go. More specifically, people interested in fingerprints, firearms, tool marks, or crime scene investigation, they would go into that concentration. And people who want to become death investigators. Now, a death investigator is different from a medical examiner. A death investigator works for a medical examiner. They go out to the scene, they look at the body preliminarily, but they really interview people surrounding what happened and kind of assist the medical examiner in determining manner of death. Okay. So we don't so much prepare for all of the other specialties of forensic science, but we really focus in on the criminalistics because that's where the jobs in the crime labs are. And we're focusing on creating scientists that can specialize in those areas. As you kind of saw from our faculty introductions, our faculty reflect the specialties that we have in concentration. And they all have both practical crime laboratory experience as well as a teaching and research experience. And I think that's a really unique, thing that you won't find in as many programs. So again, that's our goal, is to prepare you for a career and further graduate studies if desired. We are FEPAC accredited. So FEPAC is the Forensic Science Educational Program Accreditation Commission, which is a committee it's a commission, but it's run by the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. And so we've been accredited since 2006. The whole goal of FEPAC is to ensure that students are being prepared as scientists first, and that they have the educational background so that they can go and be adequately prepared for jobs in forensic science. So again, we have broad exposure to all of the concentrations. You do take courses in most of the specialties, regardless of your concentration. So even if you are a forensic biologist, you are going to have to take a forensic chemistry course and a patterns course and a crime scene course to get some exposure. It's important that you understand what your role is within the crime laboratory and how you will interact with and work with the other forensic scientists in the crime laboratory. You're often going to have to share evidence. Like it's going to have to go from one section to another. And so understanding what each of you is doing to the evidence and who needs it first and who needs it second and how you need to work together on it is important. So we do have strong ties with several accredited forensic laboratories. Of course, Virginia Department of Forensic Science is probably our strongest relationship. Linda, who came and spoke this morning, is on the graduate committee, so she actually assists in reviewing all of the applications. She helps us evaluate and make any curriculum changes. Her scientists teach as adjunct faculty on a couple of courses every semester. But we also have people from the FBI and the DEA and the ATF teaching as adjunct faculty every semester. And so we have good relationships with other laboratories as well. And our proximity, of course, to DC makes that very easy. And our good reputation also makes that easy, both for research collaborations as well as teaching collaborations. We do have a strong emphasis on postgraduate placement. Again, our reputation makes this pretty easy. So for the master's program, 98% of our graduated students have a position within 6 months of graduation. And the only reason it's 6 months is because background checks sometimes take a long time. So most of our students have an offer by the time they graduate, or they're in interviews. But those background checks can often take a long time. So I think my last student from the May cohort started her job October 1st, but she had an offer in July. It just took that long for her to get the background check through. So, so yeah, students get jobs out of this program very consistently. So from 2005, since I've been associated with this program all the way through, every year we've had 98 to 100% placement every year. So it's a very, very good reputation. And so our students do get jobs. As I already mentioned, our faculty do have crime laboratory experience. To get it into numbers, 82% of us have spent at least five years in a crime laboratory at some point. Many of us do still perform some type of case or laboratory consulting. All of us are still active in the forensic science field. So even if we're not still doing case or laboratory consulting, we are performing research, we're active in the forensic science organizations, we're assisting in developing standards for the forensic science community and things like that. In terms of research, over the past 3 years, and those are COVID years, so give us a break. We've had 48 publications in forensic science journals, and 65% of those include master's students co-authors. So we place a very high priority on getting master's students involved in important research and getting you guys on these papers with us. Master's students are very important parts of our research. For the big reason that our master's students get jobs is because they have a lot of instrumentation experience. Depending on the concentration, the type of instrumentation experience you're going to have is different. So for a DNA student, You're going to be working on the DNA instrumentation. You're going to have qPCR experience. You're going to be on the 3500 doing maintenance during your class. You're not only getting DNA profiles, but you're going to be doing maintenance during your class. You're going to be working on the rapid instrument. For chemistry students, you're going to be working on, oh shoot, I'm a DNA person. You're going to be working on GCMSs, the DART, all kinds of chemistry things. I'm sorry. LCMS, triple quad, a couple. Yeah. We have a lot of things. You're going to go on a tour later. You'll see them all. We pretty much have every instrument that's in a crime lab, and then we have instruments that haven't hit the crime labs yet, but they'll be there in 5 years. So, but we have every instrument that's currently in a crime laboratory. And so that's why our students get jobs, because they're either very comfortable with the instruments that are in the labs, or they're working on or did their research on instruments that a laboratory wants to put in their lab. And so labs hire them because they want to get that instrument in their lab. And so they see that student as an advantage. And this is very consistent with why our students get jobs. So our graduate level labs are small. So we keep the lab classes at, usually it's 8 to 12. Some of the DNA labs have gotten a little bigger, 12 to 14, just because our class size on the DNA side has gotten a little bigger. But every student gets hands-on, one-on-one time with the instrument, and the faculty teach the labs. So TAs don't teach labs here, faculty teach labs. The TAs help prep the labs and they circulate, but the faculty teach the labs. Regardless of the concentration, the students are required to do maintenance, again, to help them familiarize, become comfortable with the instruments. We also prioritize getting our students comfortable and networked with the forensic community. So we provide funding to get our students to at least one forensic meeting, usually in their second year, so that they can present their work. Typically 75 to 80% of our students present their research at a forensic meeting. So it's usually in their second year. Usually they'll attend, for the DNA students, they usually attend at the Academy, American Academy of Forensic Science. The chemists, Dr. Peace and Dr. Alves, prefer SOFT, the Society for Forensic Toxicology, which is where they're at this week. And sometimes they'll go to AFS. Sometimes we'll go to a regional meeting, Mid-Atlantic Association of Forensic Scientists, which is a smaller meeting, but it's a great opportunity for networking because you can network better in a smaller group. And so it's a really, so the faculty will take the students around, network with other alumni. We always have an alumni event where other alumni who are now in supervisory positions will come in and we'll introduce them to students. So we make sure to really get our students out and show them the ropes. So we have a lot of opportunities for relevant research, both on campus and off campus. I will be talking about the directed research project specifically and doing it either at a crime lab or on campus in just a little bit. So just hold off on that for a second. So VCU is huge, right? 30-ish thousand students, and it's probably a little intimidating. How many of you are coming from a small university or rural university? So I was a little intimidated. I'm from the country. I went to school at William and Mary, which is in Williamsburg, and it's a small town. And so I came here for my master's degree and I was pretty intimidated, but the program itself is very small. So while we do have 350 undergraduates, we only have 48 to 50 graduate students. And so we know each of you by name and face. We keep up with you. We have social events 2 or 3 times a year. You have your own advisor and a faculty advisor that's in your specialty that you connect with a couple of times a year. You meet with me a couple of times a year. And so it's much more personal. The master's classes tend to kind of go together everywhere as a cohort. And so you tend to be your own small community, which is really nice. Yeah.
48 in total or 48 per class?
24 per class. Yeah, so 48 total. But you get the benefits of a really big university. Like there's lots of places to eat, there's really great student services, there's really great sports, there's clubs, the gym is incredible. If you have a chance to see the gym, great student club. So a lot of benefits to a big university, but more of a small town feel when you're in the department where people know you. So something to think about. And again, the graduate class the lectures will never be above 24 to 25 because your class size is that big. And again, your laboratories are typically 12 or less. There are opportunities outside of the classroom. So we have a forensic science student club. We also have a forensic science graduate student club. So the forensic science student club is undergrad and grad. They do some pretty cool things. They have like, this weekend, they're doing like a mystery theater, murder mystery dinner. Yeah. I think sometimes the graduate students do rec sports. They, one year they did volleyball, one year they did rugby. They do all kinds of cool stuff. There's a graduate student club. There's all kinds of cool things to do. And then Joe has service events as well. You can do a service learning for credit or just for volunteer, where they go out to the middle schools and teach students about forensic science. So there's lots to do. Richmond is a cool place anyway. All right, so getting into the nitty-gritty of the curriculum. So the curriculum is a full-time 2-year program. Unfortunately, because of the hands-on nature of the program and because every science course in the curriculum has labs either integrated or attached to them, there's no online components. Like the only online parts are the seminars sometimes so that we can bring in really great distinguished outside speakers. But right now it's still a full-time 2-year in-person program. It's 42 credits, and that's 26 core, which everybody takes, and then 16 specialized for the concentration. Most of the courses are on campus, but some of the courses are off campus, primarily at the crime laboratory, which is about a mile away near the MCD campus. So these are the core courses. So everybody takes these regardless of their concentration. So everybody takes seminar 3 times. So you're here for 4 semesters. You take this 3 of your 4 semesters. Typically what it involves is we have outside speakers, really great outside speakers, come and speak about their research. We have ethics professionals. We have people from the ATF, the FBI, forensic psychologists, every area of specialty. And then we also scatter in a few master's students defending their theses. And so that is currently still over Zoom because we've really enjoyed bringing in the quality of speakers that we can bring in instead of just bringing in local people. And so we'll probably keep that one over Zoom. And then everybody takes a statistics course. Now, there is a forensic science statistics course that you can also take instead of the Stat 543, but everybody takes a statistics course. That's really important regardless of the forensic field you're in. Everybody takes a patterns course. Now you can choose between pattern evidence, which is fingerprints and impressions, firearms, or tool marks. It's your choice. And each of them is offered a couple of times so that you have time to fit it into your schedule. Everybody takes evidence and criminal procedure. This is taught by one of a couple of attorneys that we have that are pretty consistent. They have a forensic experience as well as their attorneys. And so they can help you kind of put into context where forensic science kind of fits into the broader aspect of the criminal justice system and how not to screw up your evidence so that you cause a mistrial, that kind of thing. Everybody takes in their first semester instrumentation in forensic chemistry. That's a 2-credit lecture. Everybody takes microscopy and microscopy lab. Yes, ma'am.
One time we talked about how it's on microscopy, since we've gone through it, there's a possibility that getting this way, just that
Yep, I'll talk about that in just a second. Yep. Everybody takes DNA. And then if you're a biology concentration person, you take DNA lab. But if you're a chemistry person, you take chemistry lab. So you take one or the other. And then everybody takes professional practices and expert testimony. So in professional practices and expert testimony, you take, that's taught usually by Linda, the head of the crime laboratory, and it's team taught by her and either a forensic science faculty member or another attorney. And they go over ethics, they go over quality control and quality assurance aspects of forensic science. You take a mock case that you built during one of your concentration specific lab courses. You go to a Richmond courthouse. Your case is presided over by a retired Richmond judge. We have real defense attorneys and real prosecuting attorneys, and you testify. So it's really scary, but it's really great practice for you. And you get to watch your peers do that as well. And we go over resume building, cover letters, practice, applying and interviewing and all of that as well. And then everybody does directed research. So as you mentioned, there are some waivers that can happen. If you're coming from a forensic science program, a couple of these basic fundamental courses can be waived. Usually it will be microscopy, maybe DNA lecture, maybe when we get down to the concentration specific courses, crime scene. If you're a VCU student, there's a couple specific courses as well: microscopy, serology and DNA, crime scene, evidence and criminal procedure. Yeah, so it really depends. Yeah. In undergrad, no. But if you took a grad level, then I'll consider it.
That was one of the questions that you just mentioned, some of the classes in the way, but it sounded like when we went around and did intro, there were a lot of people with forensic science undergrad. If you're coming in without forensic science undergrad, is that any disadvantage?
No.
You come in, you're not missing any.
No, that's why we set the first semester the way we have, so that everybody kind of gets boot camp together. So that you all, the first semester kind of puts everybody on an even playing field. And so it gives you what we think you need to succeed for the rest of the program. And that's why if you come in with a forensic science degree, we may waive you off of one of those courses. Now, a waiver doesn't mean that they get to skip out. They still have to take 3 credits somewhere else. So they'll have more electives to play with. But those fundamental courses we think are important. And if they have something that we think is equivalent, then they can take something else. Yeah. So our forensic biology students then go on to take advanced forensic DNA, which is a lecture lab hybrid course. They take emerging applications for forensic biology, which is also a lecture lab hybrid to some extent. They take crime scene investigation, they take population genetics, and then they have 4 credits of electives. Now specifically, this is pretty prescribed because the FBI's quality assurance standards for employment as a forensic DNA analyst are very specific. And that's why our admissions requirements for a forensic biology concentration are very specific. So we require for admissions that you have genetics, cell biology, biochemistry, and molecular biology. Because for you to be a DNA analyst in the United States, you have to have those things. And we don't have a great biochemistry course here. We have an undergrad, and then we have this crazy 5-credit monster super course on the MCV campus that will beat you up because I took it, okay? So we require that you take biochemistry before you come, if you're a biology student. So if there's anything in your undergrad transcript that we think you need to take to strengthen your qualifications as a DNA analyst, we use those 4 credits for that. Population genetics, we make you take that. Even if you have it as an undergrad, we make you take it, okay? And then the 676, 686 are important. The 565 crime scene investigation, that's really important so that you know where your evidence is coming from. Any questions on forensic biology? Oop, I see something in the chat. Can you take all 3? The patterns? Yep, sure. If you have room for your electives. Yep. Okay. So my drugs tax people, I know I have a lot of you in the room, maybe, and in Zoom. So you guys take advanced drugs, which is a lecture lab. That's at the crime laboratory right now, primarily because of the DEA license, because you're working with real drugs. 644, analytical considerations in forensic tox, is also lecture lab. Applications in forensic tox, which is really the advanced version, is 645, is lecture lab. And then you have your choice of 663, forensic medicine, or 565, crime scene investigation. And really that depends on whether you want to do drugs or tox. If you want to do drugs, not do drugs, you want to work in a drug lab, you want to take crime scene, because some drug labs send their analysts out to make safe meth labs. And you want to know where your evidence is coming from. So crime scene investigation is important for you. Toxicologists don't interface so much with evidence coming from crime scenes. They interface with the medical examiner because they're getting body fluids from dead people and from the hospital. So forensic medicine is a better fit for them. Can you take both? Yeah. If it fits in your electives, absolutely. But if you have to choose, it really depends on which pathway you want to go down. Okay. And then you have 7 elective credits. The minimum 500 level chemistry course, that is going by the wayside because chemistry is kind of been funny about giving us suitable chemistry courses. So we're kind of opening that up to other types of electives. So any questions on the drugs talks?
So if you're opening that up to other electives, could we take the crime scene or forensic medicine?
Yeah, you'll work with your advisor, and your advisor is going to be in your subject area. And so she's going to help you. It's a she because we have 2 she's right now. So she's going to help you based on your career goals, identify courses that are going to work best for you. And your question was, will graduate, I assume Jacqueline, that you're talking about the forensic biology concentration. Will graduate coursework in population genetics waive any and/or biochemistry? So if you have graduate coursework in population genetics and you can provide me with the syllabus and it looks like my graduate coursework in population genetics, then yes, I will waive you out of Pop Gen. but you will still have to take 42 credits. So you will have an extra elective space. Does that help? Okay. All right, other questions? All right. We will move on to trace. So my trace people will take fire debris and explosives, paints and polymers, crime scene investigation, and then you have 7 credits to take whatever you and Professor Hazelrig or Professor Earhart decide is best. And because they're my trace people, so those would be your advisors. Typically, they'll advise you to take advanced drugs with one of those courses as one of those electives. And the reason I say that is because trace positions are pretty rare. They're not out there. They're just more rare than drug positions. And so what we usually tell people is you find the lab you want to work in. And if you don't see a trace position, get a drugs position and wait for the trace position. Because once you have your foot in the door, the internal openings will pop up. So for trace, this is typically what we recommend. Yes.
How many credits are like these typical, are there, is the lecture lab, is it 4 credits or? Is it-
For grad, these are the,
They're all,
Mhm.
so the 7 credits of elective
it's,
is an odd number.
it is on an odd number, yes. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. So you can do an extra credit of research.
And you have 1 credit.
Yeah, you can do an independent study, you can do another seminar, you can do a lot of different things. Okay. All right, and then physical analysis, since we talked about how flexible it is so that you can customize it, you could do crime scene investigation, death investigation, fingerprints, firearms, tool marks, bloodstain pattern, anthropology. It's very flexible, right? And so there's not a lot of requirements here. You do crime scene, you do advanced crime scene, and then you have a big bucket of electives to customize it based on what you and your advisor agree is going to work for your career path. And so usually that'll mean taking more of the patterns courses or some anthropology courses or maybe some physics courses. It really depends on what you want to do with your life. Okay. So questions on that? Okay. So this is an example program. So this is the biology 2-year plan. So but this is pretty much what everybody's fall would look like coming in as a first-year student. So everybody would take microscopy with the lab. Everybody would take DNA lecture. And my biology students would take DNA lab, but my chemistry students would take chemistry lab instead. But everybody takes chemistry lecture. Everybody takes seminar. So that's it for your fall. And I know that this doesn't look like a lot, but it's a lot, okay? Graduate level courses are much more intensive. It's less classes, but more work, yes. Nine to 10 for graduate students.
That's considered full-time.
Mhm. That's full-time for any graduate study, anywhere in the country.
About how long are lectures?
So if it's a lecture lab hybrid class, it could be 4 to 6 hours. If it's just a straight lecture, it's just like at your school, right? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 hour each, or Tuesday, Thursday, an hour and 15. Yeah. It's usually one big block. Yeah. It's a monster. Like my spring class is the advanced DNA class, and we meet from 9 to 2:30. It's a brutal class. But you know, we're doing DNA analysis, so we'll get something started, and then while it's incubating, I'll lecture. and then we'll come back and we'll do work on the back end, right? And so chemistry does the same thing. While things are incubating, they lecture, and then they can do more work on the back end. So,
So you said this is the typical fall load for everybody.
Yep.
regardless.
mhm.
Does that mean you have time when you come in thinking you want to be this track and then having the ability to switch to a different track?
Yes,
point?
yes, but if you're gonna switch, you have to switch here because it's it's very hard to switch after. Mhm.
But you have the opportunity to come in.
You
the
could.
first semester and be like, "Oh, I
Mhm.
really dig this."
You could. It's pretty rare, but you could. I do have I do have students occasionally switch from trace to drugs or drugs to trace, or one of the chemistries to physical. I don't have a lot switch from chemistry to bio or bio to chemistry. But it could happen.
Just mainly because of the prereqs.
Mhm.
And
Mhm. Yeah, the prereqs are very different. So, yeah, 9 to 10 credits per semester. This does not include anything in the summer between the first and second year, but typically students do perform some of their research in the summer between their first and second year, though it's not required. You can graduate without doing it, but most students do it.
is that here or anywhere?
We'll talk about it. Okay, so as I mentioned, we do several times, we do prioritize hands-on experience. I'll be posting this and sending out the link. So thank you for coming. Yeah. Every science-based course in our department that's required has an integrated, either co-rec or integrated laboratory component. And then 77% of our elective courses also have a laboratory component. There are a couple of topics courses that are lecture only, not lab, like microbial forensics, because Dr. Earhart really can't bring anthrax into a teaching lab. But for the most part, we try to include labs whenever possible. So directed research. So this is a really important part of our program. It's essentially a thesis. Technically, it's not a thesis, but essentially it's a thesis. It is an original research project that the student works on either here on campus or at a crime laboratory. And they choose where they want to do it. And there are a number of different factors as to why they would choose to do it on campus or off campus at a crime lab, and I'll go over that. It is student driven, but it's faculty assisted. And the student does not have to come up with the idea. The ideas and the projects are already existing. So really what the student has to do is decide who they want to work with and what projects they want to work on. And if they want money or not, and what lab they want to work in. And that's how they really make their decisions. Now, the research can be basic, like fundamental research, or it can be applied. It can be something that may never be in a forensic laboratory. It may be very fundamental, or it may be, validation of something that's already in a forensic laboratory. But it does have to be forensic science related. It does not have to be within the forensic science lab. We've had forensic science projects that were in the Department of Engineering. And then we've had, plenty here in the department, and we've had plenty at the FBI and the crime lab and all of that. It is supervised laboratory work, and it culminates in a written thesis and a 45-minute oral presentation and a defense to the students' committee. And then again, as I said, it can be completed either in a crime laboratory or in an academic research laboratory. This is a list of just some of the external sponsors who have sponsored our students. So again, here at VCU, but also at a variety of other places, both domestically, private, public, state, local, federal laboratories, and internationally. So you can go wherever you want. It's up to you.
Is that entirely on the student to find a lab to work with, or you all help facilitate like projects that are, various labs around the country are looking for people to work these projects?
So both. So what I usually tell students is that it's kind of strategic. So if you want to, working on campus is kind of a low intensity, long duration project. Like you're probably only going to work 15 to 20 hours a week. You're going to probably start in the summer and you'll work all the way through into the fall semester and maybe even into the spring. You may get paid. You may even be lucky enough to be on a research project that's funded, and you could even get like a big stipend in tuition, maybe, right? If it's on a funded project. And so it might be really great. The other advantages are that usually these are fundamental research projects. You're more likely to get on a paper, or if you're thinking about graduate research, like a PhD program, it's often better to work in an academic lab and get that kind of experience instead of working at a forensic laboratory, right? So those are some of the advantages for working in an academic lab. If you want specifically to work in the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, let's say you grew up in Ohio, you want to work in the Ohio BCI, you really want to work there, you should get your foot in the door. And so we have alumni there, we know people there, we have contacts, we can help you apply through their system, but we can also email our contacts and help get your foot in that door for their internship position. And so typically, if our students want to go somewhere, we can help them get their foot in the door there. The advantages of working in a crime laboratory for your research are that you do get your foot in the door. If you make a good impression when they have positions open, they're going to call you and tell you. They're going to give you advance notice, right? Disadvantage, except for the federal agencies, nobody pays, right? But, in academia, they may not be able to pay you it either. Some labs will have money, some labs won't. That's correct. They will. The state labs, any crime lab research project will be very intense lab work over the summer. So it will be like 40 hours a week, May to August. And you'll do all of your lab work in the summer. And then you'll come back and in the fall, you'll do your data analysis and you'll defend and write and finish up your project. And so it's high intensity, short duration. And so these are things that the students work through in their head. Like, how do I want to work through my research project? What are my future career goals? Who do I want to work with? What kind of project do I want to work on? Do I want to work on something that I'm going to get a paper, or do I want to work on something that's more applied that I'll get my hands on instrumentation like in a crime lab that people are currently using, or do I want something that people are using in the next 10 years, which would be in an academic lab? So there are a lot of different factors, and the academic advisor is going to work with the student to kind of work through that. And then I have mandatory meetings with the students every semester, and we talk through this for an hour. So we meet and talk about it, and then they individually meet with their academic advisor and talk through their specific situation. And their academic advisor works with them to identify labs and PIs and contacts and stuff. Yeah.
People end up coming to our on the same project that's academically geared, what will do about that? Like if the interest they have is in like one of the projects we listed on these.
Yeah. So it's somewhat first come, first serve, right? Some of the projects we can handle a couple of people, but yeah, at the end of at the end of the day, it is first come, first served. Or there's a selection process. We typically also, of course, have the crime lab, and so, of course, there's a crime lab in Richmond, so you can work in Richmond at a crime lab, which is nice too.
Are the research projects that are listed on here, are they like long-standing projects or just what's being worked on this year? Or?
We update them every year, but they're relatively long-standing. So we don't really change them every year. We kind of evolve them. Let's put them that way. Yeah. Other questions? Okay. All right. So I'm not going to go over this because it looks like Joe gave you guys overviews with everybody's research interest areas. And those of you who are on Zoom, either Joe has sent you the faculty members' research areas, or we'll make sure that we send that out when we send the recording out. Okay. In terms of products from the directed research program, as I mentioned, we try to get our students out. We do our best to get our students out, and we provide funding to them to present their work. Because consistently, since I've been taking data for the past 5 years, over 75% of our students present at national or regional forensic science conferences each year. We've had 116 presentations or posters since 2019. So that's a lot. That's more than we've had students since 2019. So clearly, they've been presenting more than once, right? And more than 550 since 2005. So, I mean, the numbers are really big, but I would point you to the fact that we only had about 3 research faculty until 2015. And so our faculty has dramatically grown in the past 10 years. So our productivity has dramatically grown as well. Peer-reviewed manuscripts. So we've had 46 in the past 3 years and over 200 since 2005. And as I mentioned earlier, 65% of those have master's students on them. We have a very small number of PhD students. And they're through a separate program, the Integrated Life Sciences program. So the majority of the work being done on the research in this program is by master's students. So we value master's students very much. Like they are, and the research that they do is very important to us. All right, and then in terms of job placement, 99% of our alumni over the past 15 years, since I've been tracking it, have had a position in forensic science or a related field within 6 months of graduation. And again, this is just a small listing of the positions, the places where our students have gone, very small. And again, you can see it's public, private, local, state, and federal laboratories. All right. So any questions before I move on to application, the application process?
Is there an opportunity to do independent research?
Like independent studies?
I saw something about independent research on the website, so that's why I was wondering.
So the directed research takes up a lot of your time. But we do occasionally have students who have enough time to do an independent study as well. And yes, we do have independent studies available. Typically, again, it's a smaller project. You can do it with the same PI or a different PI, or it can even be something like you shadowing at a crime laboratory or doing a small project for them that wouldn't count as a directed research project. Yeah, all of that would count as an independent study. Okay, so in terms of applying to the program, it all goes through the VCU portal for the graduate school. And you guys have bulletin copies, so you can see all of that. In terms of our admissions criteria, the things that we review are GPA, your degree, and the courses that you took during your undergraduate preparation. So we no longer require the GRE, and we actually don't even look at it. So I advise my committee to not even look at it, even if it's good. So don't even submit it. So I don't want them to be biased either way. And I would rather them look at you in all of your other excellence. So everybody needs 8 credits of organic chemistry. So that's 2 courses with the labs and 8 credits of general biology. Now, I know that some of my chemists have 1 course of general biology with laboratory and are struggling with that second. And so I will say that for the chemistry students, we often accept biochemistry as that second biology course. And so if that's your situation, you can reach out to me on an individual basis, but that's typically what we do accept is biochemistry as that second biology course. And then additional admission requirements, and this coursework is specifically because, not so much because we think you need it to succeed in our program, but because we think you need it, we know you need it to succeed as a forensic scientist and to get a job in forensic science. And that is 9 credits of upper level chemistry for any forensic chemistry track, 9 additional credits in upper level biology, including biochemistry, genetics, and cell biology. And then for physical, 9 additional credits in upper level science. Okay. Any questions there?
We have to submit a copy of our transcript to
Mhm.
the application. We graduated from VCU, we have to send it to VCU. So when we order it from the clearinghouse, from VCU, send to VCU, that thing. Because I got ready to apply, and it's like, are you sure you want VCU to send VCU transcript? Oh my God.
Can you just pull it? Can you print the unofficial? Can you still access VCUE services? Can you send me an email and I will and print it up? And I'll email it to you and then you upload it unofficial.
Okay.
Okay. There's no reason for you to pay for that. Okay, other questions? Transcripts? You can totally upload unofficial transcripts. We don't require official transcripts until the summer before you matriculate. So you can scan things in and email them. They can be ugly. We just want to see them. Okay. I don't care if you scan them in. I don't care. I just want to see them. They don't have to be official. But we can't evaluate them until I see something. Okay. All right. And then personal statement and letter of recommendation. So in your personal statement, this should be no more than 2 pages. No more. And I would say keep it at 1 if you can, unless you have a really compelling story. The 3 things that we really want to see are why forensic science, and specifically why the concentration that you want to go into, why VCU, and do you have anything you want to talk about to explain anything in the rest of your package? Like, did you fail something? Did you bomb your first year of freshman? Like, is there anything you need to explain? Because I want to hear about it. Okay. And I'm not judging, because in my last semester of my senior year, I failed a programming class and I got a C in another class, and I was pregnant and I was doing my research and I wasn't doing anything else. And so, I didn't do anything. I just bombed it, right? So before I went to grad school, I took a graduate level course and I got an A in it. And I wrote in my personal statement, this is what happened. And look, I took this course and I got an A. I can do the work. I'm sorry. And I got in and I did fine, right? But you have to explain what happened. Okay, so if something happened, explain what happened. We've all had we were all in school during COVID. So if you had like something happen, explain it. We're understanding people, really. Okay, so why forensic science? Why the concentration you want? Why VCU? And anything you need to explain. Any questions on your personal statement? And have somebody proofread it, please. Okay. All right. Then for your recommendations, you need 3 recommendations. Pick people who will actually write them, please. Because we always have packages that are totally done with 1 recommendation hanging because somebody hasn't turned it in. So pick people who will write them and then harass them until they do. You want to pick at least 1 person who knew you and taught you in the sciences. It doesn't have to be forensic science, but they need to know you, have been your research mentor, or taught you in the sciences. You need to pick people who knew you well or interacted with you significantly. You can pick somebody who was your employer, your Boy Scout troop leader, your sports coach, but that can only be 1 person. Like, you need an academic person, you can pick a career or hobby person, and then you can pick a 3rd person. No personal people, right? No church, family, neighbors, that kind of thing. Okay. All right, they need to know you well. If you did research in anybody's lab, you have to ask them, unless you guys got in a big fight. Because if we don't see it, we assume you got in a big fight, okay? So we assume that something went really wrong, and that's a big red flag to us, and we're gonna say that's a big red flag, okay? Questions on recommendations? It's okay. I went back to my undergrad 10 years later and said, can you write a letter for me? They have it saved. It's okay. Other questions? But in your case, so it's been a long time. So you can have 1 academic, and then you can have 2 from more recent people who know you well. Okay? But you still need somebody who could speak to your academics, even if it was 10 years ago. Yeah. Probably not, unless like, I don't know, you were like, they were with you for something really intense, super intense. Yeah. Did you have a question? Oh, thanks. Criminal justice professor VCU. Yeah, sure. If you knew them really well, Victoria, but you would still also need a science faculty member. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Sure.
So my professor is the one that I'm doing research with, and also my advisor for since I declared major, so about 2.5 years. So should he speak on the position of being my advisor or research director or both?
He will probably speak to all of it. I do when I write that kind of letter.
Okay, okay, got it. Thank you.
Other questions?
You said you'll have an application hanging with 2 red letters and not a 3rd. You will not evaluate an application without a 3rd letter recommendation?
Not until April. We will wait. Yeah. So, so that kind of leads into kind of our process. So this is our entering class. So the don't be intimidated by the GPA. So the average entering GPA is 3.57. This is pretty consistent actually, year over year. Normal, this is a normal male to female ratio. There's always more females than male. This is the normal breakdown. So we have more research faculty in biology and drugs talks. So we take more students in those areas. And then we take less students in traits and physical. I don't measure a GRE anymore because we don't collect them. So I took that out.
Do you limit, like, you will limit the track size?
I will.
Okay.
Mhm. So in terms of our criteria, we start evaluating applications if we have at least 3 in mid-December. So as soon as we start having a batch, we will start evaluating as early as mid-December. We will evaluate every 2 weeks, all the way through. Now, the application deadline is technically March 1st, but we will keep evaluating them all the way through the summer if the class is not full. But priority for funded positions is March 1st. But the earlier you can get them in, the better chance you have if you have a strong application for being offered a funded position. So, and like I said, we will wait if the application is not complete until about mid-April, if we're waiting on a recommendation. And then by mid-April, we'll say, okay, we'll evaluate it without that recommendation. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll email people right away. Yes. So funding here is, we have teaching assistant physicians, and so they provide a stipend, and they do not provide tuition. So it's a $12,500 stipend. We typically have 4 to 5 of those, and then we have usually 6 to 8 students also funded through biology and chemistry to help teach their courses. And so by the time we hit July, 80% of our students have some type of funding. Especially, and now that graduate students are eligible for work study, I always encourage the students to let me know if they are eligible for work study through their financial aid, because we can make positions for them. So I can make positions in laboratories for students if they're eligible for work study. Okay.
How intensive is the TA requirements? You said it's the program itself is very intensive, very heavy workload, a lot of labs.
20 hours a week. It's 20 hours a week. So we don't encourage students to work more than 20 hours a week, regardless of where they are. It's been very consistent that people that work more than about 20 to 25 hours a week will find that they suffer. Let's see. Did I miss anything? No. No. Okay, so money. So that's kind of where I was going to go next. So, yeah, the assistantships, the department has 4 to 5 each year. We do automatically consider all applicants. You don't have to click a button. You don't have to ask in your statement to be considered. Everybody's automatically considered. Things that will get you higher on the list would be prior research experience, good grades, good recommendations. But research experience isn't required, but it will help. Instrument experience helps. Prior work experience on instruments will help. Other employment, so we employ students, especially, so we have hourly positions in the office, we have research positions in the laboratories, excuse me, biology in the Department of Biology and Chemistry have teaching assistantships, both teaching assistantships that have a stipend, and also LTAs, which provide a certain amount of stipend per numbers of classes taught. And then also the Virginia Department of Forensic Science has a couple of very flexible positions that pay really well, like $16 or $17 an hour. And they work around your schedule, and they're just scanning in cold cases. So it's very flexible, and it's a nice way to get your foot in the door in the Virginia system. And so several of our students who did that are now working as scientists in the lab there, because they had, you know, they had positions there, so they got internal postings. It's good. Questions about funding?
I have a question on that, like, application.
Sure.
Is there an interview as well?
No. Other questions? Okay. So the other thing I always like to tell people is that forensic scientists are public servants, and a forensic science position is a position of trust. And when you leave this program, you will be subjected to a background check, and the level of the background check can be pretty simple, or it can be very intense, depending on the lab that you go to. So it can be anything from a fingerprint and a credit and running you through NCIC, all the way through to a polygraph, blood test, visiting your kindergarten teacher and your neighbors, and everything, top secret clearance, all of that. So they will check social media, like, so consider cleaning up social media. Consider if you have drug use, stopping anything that you're doing right now. Even the FBI has relaxed their drug use policies. I think that marijuana is a two-year use policy now, 10-year for everything else, but 2-year use policy. So if you have smoked marijuana recently, you don't smoke it anymore, and you'll be okay by the time you graduate from the master's program. But if you're you're doing anything harder, you might be in a little bit of trouble when you're looking for jobs. So consider that when you're thinking about a position in forensic science. Now, things that you have done in your past, every laboratory has different levels of what they'll accept and what they won't. Like, I've had students get rejected from a city lab and then get top secret clearance at a Department of Defense lab. Like, there's no rhyme or reason, okay? So just be aware that, you know, there are different levels of strictness or what laboratories will accept, and some of it will be based on your history, and some of it is out of your control. But keep an eye on what you do and what you put forward into the world from now on. How about that? Okay. All right. In terms of kind of the support that you'll get from us as you move through the program, I meet with the graduate students every semester. We have a mandatory 1-hour meeting every semester. I'm always in my office with office hours so that they can pop by anytime. And then they have a subject matter expert faculty advisor that meets with them more about not only what they're taking that semester, but also more about career goals and what do you want to do with this concentration degree, and how do you get there, and helping them find jobs and network within their area of expertise and find the right professional organizations and network and all of that. The courses that we've chosen also help you get there. And then we have a forensic science expert in the Career Center. His wife actually works at the crime lab. So he really knows forensic science. So that's really nice to have. And then, of course, the student club also has career workshops and speakers as well. So we really focus on, getting you prepared for your future career. Any last questions before we go out to the meet and greet with the faculty and the students?